The cold light of your smartphone screen illuminates your face. You open your social media page, and your finger reflexively begins to scroll. Your gaze catches on the number next to the word friends. 2,457, or 3,000, or even 5,000, the maximum allowed limit. You scroll through an endless feed, familiar faces, now digital avatars, unfamiliar names, schoolmates you haven't seen in 15 years, preserved in the amber of old photographs, former colleagues you've almost forgotten, casual acquaintances from that one party whose conversation has faded from memory, leaving only a vague trace. 5,000 people who, by the rules of the system, are formally considered your friends. But instead of a sense of community and support, there's only the quiet, ringing emptiness of a digital vacuum. Why is that? To find the answer, we need to crack the code embedded deep within your brain. And for that, we need to go back in time, to the early 90s. Imagine an office at University College London. Dusty, quiet, piled high with stacks of field reports and printouts of graphs. Here, British anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent days poring over numbers, trying to solve a seemingly simple puzzle. Why do some species of monkeys, like baboons, thrive in noisy communities of up to 50 individuals, while others, like gibbons, barely manage to keep a monogamous pair together? Why are chimpanzee social networks complex, multi-layered, full of intrigue, while orangutans simplify everything to solitude? The answer, as he would soon realize, wasn't in behavior, diet, or habitat. It was etched into their very flesh, in the anatomy of their brains. Comparing data from dozens of species, from lemurs to gorillas, Dunbar discovered a striking, almost unsettling pattern. There's a direct, rigid mathematical correlation between the relative size of the neocortex, that young, thinking, wrinkled outer layer of your brain, and the average size of their social group. Plot these points on a graph, and you get an almost perfect straight line, like clockwork. Simply put, the larger a species' thinking part of the brain is relative to its total volume, the more conspecifics they can maintain in their stable troop. The brain turned out to be more than just an organ for finding food or avoiding predators. No, it was a powerful social computer, a specialized processor whose sole task, it turned out, was to process relationships. And the main task of this computer, installed in your head, isn't to solve abstract logical problems or write poetry. Its primary, most energy-intensive function is to process a gigantic, constantly changing volume of social information. This is an enormous cognitive load. Imagine, your brain is constantly scanning its surroundings. It needs to remember who is allied with whom, who is an enemy, who owes whom a favor after yesterday's meeting, who is whose offspring, and who is a dangerous alpha competitor. It tracks everyone's reputation, predicts their next moves, assesses reliability. The more powerful this social processor in your skull, the more complex and numerous a network of relationships it can maintain. Before the system starts to malfunction, overheating from overload, which inevitably leads to the group's collapse. This discovery, later termed the social brain hypothesis, turned anthropology on its head. It showed that our intelligence evolved not to create tools, but to deal with other people. If the brain is a social calculator, hardware limited by its computational power, like any processor, then the main, almost forbidden question arises. A question that defines everything. What number will this calculator produce for the largest, most complex, most developed neocortex on the planet? For the brain that is now listening to these words? For the brain of Homo sapiens? And so Dunbar takes known data. The volume of your neocortex, its ratio to the rest of the brain. He plugs these numbers into his formula, into this cold, ruthless equation that had flawlessly worked for dozens of monkey species before. Fingers tap on keys. The moment of truth. Calculation initiated. A quiet hum from the computer in the dusty office. Everything paused in anticipation. A number appears on the screen. 147.8. Let's round it up. 150. There it is. The theoretical limit of your social group, predicted solely based on the cold, impartial anatomy of your brain. This isn't the number of people you can recognize on the street. No. This is the ceiling for those with whom you can maintain stable, live relationships. Relationships where you don't just know their name and where they work, but where you feel responsibility. Remember details of their lives. Anticipate their reactions. This requires enormous computational power. And understand the main thing. This isn't just an average number. It's a cognitive wall, a rigid limit embedded in your neurobiology. Your brain, like a hard drive, can store thousands of names and faces, but it cannot simultaneously process thousands of dynamic connections. This requires empathy, analysis, prediction. Imagine your brain as a browser. You can open 50, even 100 tabs, but at some point, your RAM, your working memory, will simply run out. The system will start to slow down. Freeze. For your social brain, this limit is 150 active tabs. 150 living, breathing stories that your processor keeps online. Try to open the 151st, and one of the old ones will inevitably be unloaded from memory. The person will become just a name on a contact list. But a theory derived from primate anatomy is one thing. In the real world, with all the complexity of human culture, is quite another. What if this beautiful number is just an elegant mathematical artifact? The scientific community was skeptical, and to prove his point, Dunbar had to leave his quiet office to become not only a biologist, but also a historian, a sociologist, almost a detective. He went in search of his ghost number to prove this code governs not only a troop of baboons, but also your office, your family, all of human history. Jump back 10,000 years to the Neolithic era. Imagine a village, smelling of hearth smoke and damp clay. Here there are no laws, no police, no written contracts. The only currency that ensures your survival is personal trust. Daily. You must know everyone by face. Know who is a good hunter, who is a reliable protector, and who cannot be trusted with the communal grain supply. When such a village grew, social tension increased like steam in a locked boiler, and it inevitably split into two. And anthropological data from the Near East to Mesoamerica shows the point of this social division always occurred at the same mark, around 150 people. This was the average size of Neolithic settlements. It was also the size of hunter-gatherer tribal groups, from the Kalahari Bushmen to the Arctic Inuit. But most strikingly, this code did not disappear with the advent of civilization. It simply disguised itself. Take the Roman Empire. The basic autonomous combat unit, the maniple, numbered about 120 men. English villages in the 11th century, recorded in the Domesday Book, averaged 150 inhabitants. Your modern army, its company, consists of 100 to 250 soldiers. But its effective combat corps, the group where everyone is willing to die for a neighbor, rarely exceeds 150. This figure surfaces again and again, like a universal social constant, like gravity. And here's a shocking fact, confirmed by 20th century military sociology. Army units whose numbers are intentionally increased beyond 150 or 200 people show a sharp, measurable drop in coordination and morale. In a critical situation, orders get lost. Flanks sag. Soldiers stop feeling a personal connection and responsibility for each other. Your evolutionary brain limit for trust turns out to be stronger than any military doctrine, stronger than any charter. The system based on personal connections, which makes one soldier cover another under fire, simply breaks down. The ringing in your ears persists, but you can no longer hear your neighbor's commands. He is no longer your brother. He is just another unit on the map. Dunbar's number is inscribed into the very foundation of our history, like an invisible architect. From ancient villages to modern armies, we unconsciously build our most effective communities around this magical limit. This code governs you, even if you don't see it. But how does this global, almost geological law manifest at the micro level? In your personal life, right now. To see this, we need to perform an autopsy to dissect the very anatomy of your friendship. Let's do a thought experiment right now, 3 a.m. It's dark outside, and you've had a real, big problem. Your phone feels cold in your hand. How many people from your vast contact list could you call at this hour? Not text, call. Knowing that upon hearing your cracking voice, they would drop everything and come. Most would name 1, 2, maybe 3 people. Dunbar's research confirms, on average, this number does not exceed 5. This is your closest, innermost circle, your support tribe. Dunbar found that your entire social universe is structured like a solar system. It consists of concentric orbits, and their size follows a strict rule. 5 people. This is the core, your closest, your shoulder to lean on. The next orbit, 15 people, is your circle of sympathy. Good friends with whom you share intimate details. Then comes a layer of 50 people, your regular acquaintances. And finally, the outer limit of 150, all other meaningful acquaintances. Each subsequent circle is approximately 3 times larger than the previous one. This is called the rule of 3. And here's the main, almost cruel twist. These numbers aren't just averages. They are rigidly limited structural slots. Your social life is a zero-sum game. If a new, incredibly important person enters your inner circle of 5, someone else will likely be emotionally and temporarily displaced to the next, more distant orbit. We can change the people in these slots, but we cannot increase the number of slots themselves. Your brain, with its limit on emotional investment, cannot physically sustain more than 5 closest friends and 15 good ones. The cognitive and emotional resources are exhausted. But why? What invisible accountant in your neocortex so strictly monitors this social budget? Why can't you just expand these circles by sheer willpower? The answer lies in the most expensive, irreplaceable currency in the universe: time. And in an ancient mechanism for maintaining connections that we inherited directly from our primate ancestors. This mechanism is called social grooming. Imagine a scorching afternoon in the African savanna. The air shimmers with heat. A group of monkeys sits in the sparse shade of an acacia tree. One methodically, with surgical precision, finger by finger, picks through the fur of another. This isn't hygiene. It's not a search for parasites. It's an ancient ritual. It's an invisible, yet vital currency with which they pay for trust, for protection, for support. Each such touch is a deposit into a common bank of loyalty, a biochemical signal that binds their group more strongly than any glue. You stopped literally picking through your neighbor's fur a long time ago, but the neurobiological mechanism itself hasn't gone anywhere. Your social grooming today is time, attention, and empathy. It's conversations over coffee. It's long phone calls to parents when unspoken worries are heard in their voice. Each such interaction requires tremendous effort from your neocortex. It needs to keep in memory the context of a person's life, their complex history, their social circle, their recent defeats and triumphs. This is an enormous cognitive load, and here you run into a fundamental, rigid limit. Your brain has a finite budget of attention, and this budget, like time in a day, cannot be stretched. So how much can you afford? Dunbar's research provided a shockingly precise answer. Your entire budget of time and attention, your entire capacity for social grooming, allows you to qualitatively, empathetically maintain relationships with approximately 150 people, and not one person more, and no technology can change this. A like on Instagram, which you give in a fraction of a second, is not a heart-to-heart conversation. A comment under a post is not a shoulder to lean on. It's just a weak digital imitation that doesn't release oxytocin or replenish the account in your bank of trust. Your brain, a product of millions of years of evolution, demands real investment, time, and it's enough for exactly 150 accounts. This creates a stunning paradox. Your brain, evolved in a world of physical scarcity, operates according to the laws of a limited cognitive budget. But you've immersed it in a world of digital, boundless abundance. A world where a virtual party has not 150 guests, but 5,000. What happens when an ancient, evolutionarily refined biological mechanism clashes with cold, boundless technological reality? What breaks first? The fragile illusion of universal friendship, or you yourself. There it is, the portrait. You sit alone in the room. The silence is deafening. The only light, cold and blue, comes from the screen. On it, an endless, glossy feed of other people's lives. 2,473 friends. Weddings, birthdays, vacations on islands, career successes. You are surrounded by a digital crowd, dense and bright, unlike anything any of your ancestors ever saw. And right in the center of this virtual party, you feel a gnawing emptiness in your chest. You have never been so lonely. Because to see is not to participate. To know is not to understand. To be on a list is not to be part of a tribe. The illusion of social media is that it supposedly expanded your capabilities. This is a fundamental deception. They did not expand your social brain. They simply turned it inside out. They made your internal hierarchy visible to everyone. All your 150 real connections, from the closest to mere acquaintances, are now on display. And on top of them, thousands of phantom contacts have been piled. These are, in essence, one-sided, parasocial relationships. People for whom your brain has neither the time nor the cognitive resources. They create deafening informational noise, a false sense of community that only highlights the gaping emptiness where real, empathetic connection should be. Let's look at the cold, ruthless numbers, the raw data. Research by Cameron Marlowe from Facebook showed, out of thousands of so-called friends, your brain, the brain of an average user, is capable of maintaining active, meaningful dialogue with only 4, maybe 6 people. Less than 0.1% of the entire list. 4. 6. This is your innermost circle, your support group, your 5 people you'd call at 3 in the morning. Social networks didn't create thousands of friends for you. They simply showed the whole world the few people who are truly important to you and drowned them in a faceless ocean of digital avatars. But if this is such a fundamental, such an unbreakable law of nature, maybe it's time to stop fighting it. What if this limit isn't a sentence, but a roadmap? Not a prison, but an instruction manual for yourself. What if, by understanding this limit, you can not only get rid of guilt and loneliness, but also start building healthier, more effective communities? Some are already doing it, from army generals to founders of billion-dollar corporations, and quite successfully. Meet W.L. Gore and Associates, a global giant that created the Gore-Tex membrane fabric your jacket is made of. They have one strange, unshakable rule. As soon as the number of employees at one factory approaches 150, the company does not expand the old workshop. Even if it's cheaper, it builds a new one nearby. The parking lot never has more than 150 spaces. Why? Because the founder, Bill Gore, intuitively cracked the code. He understood, in a group of up to 150 people, formal ties give way to personal ones. Problems are solved not by protocol, but in a humming corridor over a cup of coffee. The atmosphere of a close-knit tribe is preserved, not a soulless corporate machine. And it works with astonishing efficiency, because such a structure uses a true hack of human nature, bringing you back to your factory settings. In groups not exceeding Dunbar's number, trust naturally flourishes without external pressure. The need for rigid hierarchy and multi-page regulations decreases, because informal social control works on its own. Personal responsibility sharply increases. After all, you're not letting down a faceless company, but specific people. Steve from accounting and Mary from the next line, whom you know personally. This isn't management magic. It's simply aligning organizational structure with your innate biological wiring. But it's not just about profit here. It's something more. It's about the idea of creating humane systems. Systems designed to work with our biology, not to break it over the knee under the pressure of quarterly reports. Effective scientific teams, successful startups, all of them, consciously or not, adhere to this ancient law. They prove that the strongest structures are built not despite our limitations, but on their unshakable foundation. We've come an incredible way, from the neocortex of a monkey in the scorching African savanna to the structure of a Roman maniple in the boardrooms of modern corporations. The same code, the same number, has governed us for millennia, woven into the very architecture of your brain. Now let's put it all together and understand what this ancient code means for you personally, right here, right now, in a world where the chime of notifications never stops. So, let's put it all together. It all started with monkeys in the scorching savanna. And a simple, almost boring observation: the larger a species' thinking part of the brain, the neocortex, the larger its stable troop. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar simply applied this cold, ruthless mathematics to humans, and the calculator spat out a number: 148. Let's round it up. 150. Then, history, as the most impartial judge, delivered its verdict. From Neolithic villages smelling of smoke to Roman maniples clanging with steel, from army companies to corporate departments, all confirmed his findings. We understood that your connections are not a chaotic crowd. They are a strict system of orbits, like planets. 5 closest, your core, 15 good friends, and so on to the outer limit of 150. And finally, we saw how this ancient biological truth collided with a bright digital lie, and the illusion of thousands of friends shattered against the gray, unyielding rocks of your neurobiology. This is not a theory. It is not a hypothesis. It is a fundamental operating law of your species. Now, mentally return to your smartphone, to its cold light. Open that endless list of names. 2,000, 3, 5,000. And instead of the usual quiet pang of guilt for not remembering everyone's birthday, for not texting, not calling, for not keeping in touch with everyone, just stop and feel an invisible but incredibly heavy burden lift from your shoulders. Feel the relief. Deep, sincere, almost physical relief. Exhale. Because it was never your personal failure. You are not an inefficient networker. You are not a bad friend. You are simply human. Of the species Homo sapiens, with a brain that has its limits. You are not looking at a list of your social failures. No. You are looking at living, digital proof of an ancient mechanism at work, one that is hardwired into your DNA, and it simply whispers to you in the language of intuition. you cannot be everything to everyone. And that is absolutely normal. And think about this. Perhaps this limit of 150 people is not a restriction, not a curse. Perhaps it is evolution's greatest, most underestimated gift. It is your personal, built-in natural filter, a safety fuse. It protects you from the meaningless, destructive waste of the most valuable, irreplaceable resource: your attention, your empathy, your life. This limit forces you to choose. It ruthlessly forces you to prioritize. It forces you to value quality, not to chase quantity. It forces you to invest in depth, not to skim the surface of broad but shallow connections. Dunbar's number is not a wall you desperately hit against. It is a compass, a quiet, unerring compass built right into your prefrontal cortex. And it always, in any storm, points to your true tribe, to the few who truly matter. And here's the final, most important question for you. Now that you know this code, now that you understand the rules of the game you've been playing your whole life without knowing them, what do you feel more? Relief? From being able to finally let go of this exhausting, endless, dopamine-driven chase for digital connections? From being able to simply be human, not a perfect social robot? Or still a slight, subtle disappointment? From being forever confined within the limits of our biology, and that no technology can change that? Think about it, and please, write just one word in the comments below this video. 1. Relief or disappointment. We are very, very interested in what you think and what you feel right now.